Welcome to Alligator Alcatraz, where everyone is welcome. You see what I did there? Chomp, chomp, chomp. We have the greatest gators. Nobody's ever seen gators like this. I get along very well with them, by the way, but we have the greatest and biggest and strongest alligators with the biggest teeth. Their teeth are bigger than Kathy Hochul's teeth. You know, I call her the bucktooth Botox bandit of Buffalo, and she's got huge teeth, the wicked witch of the Northeast. You look at her, and these gators' teeth are bigger, and they keep them in their mouth, unlike another bloodthirsty reptile by the name of Nancy Pelosi. You know, you need a windshield wiper to get through a conversation with her because she's spitting all the time. She spits like nobody's ever seen before. It's a really horrible thing. But we have beautiful gators. I get along very well with these alligators. Have been known to handle bloodthirsty reptiles before. Just look at what I did to crooked Hillary Clinton. And we also have big, beautiful snakes. You know, you have the snakes out there in the Everglades. And if you escape, these snakes are going to find you. They're going to squeeze you harder than Harry Sisson squeezed his cheeks with his little sit-down last week with Don Lemon. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Alligator Alcatraz is open and ready for business. It's officially ready to go. Everyone is welcome, and no one will be left behind. That much I can tell you. So thank you. God bless you. God bless America. God bless Alligator Alcatraz. And thank you for your attention to this matter.
That's awesome. Nice. Nice. If you don't have a start with a boomer moment, what is the point? What is the point? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the pod program. I'm your host, Joe Neiman, aka Good Lawgic. That was the famous Shawn Farash. Shawn Farash. We're gonna learn that tonight. That's one of the things I'm gonna definitely get to the bottom. Like pretty early in this show, I'm gonna go with Farash. I'm guessing it's Farash. I'm hoping it is. That's what I'm going with. Anyway, what I love about his impersonations is not just obviously the voice is great and the little mannerisms that he does. It's the little side things that he throws out in the middle. He's it's such a Trumpian type of way of speaking. Like he'll just make reference something and just say, you know what I mean, and just move along. And yeah, I don't, when I try to do Trump, I suck at it. And I find I end up doing Shawn Farash doing Trump. For that reason alone, I would be thrilled to have this guy here tonight. But it's actually far more than that. I've watched him on X, and this guy is based as hell and has actually intelligent takes. And we're at a stage over the last month or two where I look at so many different people like you, who I've always admired, respected, listened to them. I've been promoting them out there. And over the last month or two, a lot of them have had some takes that were just, what the hell? Really? That's your reaction? And Shawn Farash, time and again, I find that what he's been saying out there has been really consistent with things that I'm thinking and feeling. And that's what is my great privilege and pleasure to bring to you, Shawn. How are you, my brother?
Oh, I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And very nice intro. Very kind. You're very nice. There's a lot of people on the internet who are not very nice. But that was those were very nice things to say. So I appreciate that.
No, I think you're great. I do need to verify. It's Farash, right?
It's actually Farash.
Really?
But yeah, but it's all right because I've been called worse. That's what I say to everybody. I've been called worse.
Shawn
so it's
Farash. Okay. Wow. Okay, yeah. I could have guessed for a while, and I never got near that. Have you been experiencing what I've been experiencing, where you're basically looking at so many different people, and it's almost like you feel heartbroken when you see some of the takes they've had? Like, for example, going back to really the bombing of Iran, and you're just sort of like, really, like you have so little confidence in Trump or whatever. Have you felt like a certain frustration with people who you've been following and perhaps a fan of over the last couple of years?
I would say frustration is the word. I would say heartbreak's not the word. If there's one thing that I've learned over, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, because I do most of my content, my stuff is on the internet. I have a podcast that streams on Rumble. I spend a lot of time on X. But if there's one thing that I can really stress to everyone, and again, I don't mean it to be disrespectful. I'm grateful to have a following. I'm blessed to have a nice following on multiple social media platforms. I enjoy it all the time. But the internet isn't real life. So I don't like look at what's going on X and be like, oh no, you know what I mean? Like the sky is falling because the Hodge twins said something that I disagree with or something, right? Like, but in the same respect, like, I did follow them. I don't know if I would say I was a fan, but I liked, some of their content. But I'm not to the point where, like, if somebody on the internet that I follow says something that I disagree with, that like it's going to ruin my day or anything. But I am going to get frustrated. And I'm frustrated mostly because of how transparently, like, fake a lot of these people were. That's what bothered me the most, right? Because, I post this a lot on my social media. Because there are some times where I'll put out a take that people aren't happy with, and I'll say, that's fine. You have every right to be unhappy with me, but please don't call me a liar. Like, I promise you, I'm not lying. Like, what I'm telling you is what I'm saying because I believe it's the truth. There are people who will tell people what they want to hear simply because they know they want to hear it. That's not me. Right. I will make unpopular opinions. I'll say popular opinions. I'll throw something out there that people disagree with, not to get the reaction, but it's my opinion, right? So I always say this, and I say this on my show. I say this on social media a lot. I say, I may not always tell you what you want to hear, but I will always tell you what I believe is the truth and why I believe it's the truth. And we can discuss the take from there, right? Right. For example, I've been outspoken about, like we just mentioned, the Hodge twins, this idea of the woke right, Candace Owens. Back in March, I was very outspoken against Andrew Tate, and people were like, well, he's on your side. And I'm like, well, maybe he votes the way I do. Like, maybe he doesn't like woke type of things, but is he really on my side? He doesn't stand for what I believe are conservative values. And this is not me trying to preach off of like some sort of moral high ground, because nobody's perfect. But, I don't believe anybody is immune to criticism, and Donald Trump as well. Right. So like, there are things that he will do, and I'll be like, I don't like this. And there people would say, but you have to trust him. And I'm like, I do trust him, but not blindly. And if he's doing something that I don't agree with, I'm going to say, I don't agree with it. That doesn't mean I don't like him. That means I don't agree with it. We all have friends that do things that we would prefer they didn't do, or we think maybe it's not in their best interest to do. Maybe a friend of yours has a drinking problem. Maybe a friend of yours has a gambling problem. Maybe your friend just talks too much, and you're just like, dude, you could a little less words.
Dial it back. Dial it back like, a little bit.
Yeah. And you
a good friend is the one who will take you aside and actually
absolutely and constructively criticize,
you.
right?
Be a guardrail. Like, that's what a good friend is. A good friend is a guardrail, not an enabler.
Exactly. So like if I, for example, and I don't, but if I, for example, had a drinking problem, I would like a real issue with alcohol. I barely drink. I drink socially, really, seriously. So like I've had a case of beer in my fridge since the 4th of July. It's not gone yet. There's plenty left. Like there's still at least a good weekend left, right? Because I don't drink that much. It is what it is. It's fine. Back in my 20s, I wouldn't say that, but I'm in my mid 30s now. So the hangover lasts for 2 days. It's not fun. So but if I had a drinking problem, like an actual problem, like an addiction level, I would want my closest friends to be like, Shawn, you have a problem. Like you need to like check yourself here and understand that this is not a good lifestyle. I would want that. Yeah. I don't want people to be like, no, it's not a problem. It's cool. Like,
and that's the same way I feel.
Like if you have an obese friend, like a big friend, fat, like big Chris Christie, like big, beautiful guy, right? If you look at, and he says to me like, I'm okay, or like, put it the other way, like an anorexic friend, right? A guy who's just not eating enough, and he's like, dude, he's like, Joe, I'm massive. I have to stop eating. You should not be like, no, you're not massive. you should not be like, yeah, you should stop eating. You should tell them, be like, no, like you actually have an eating disorder. Like you need to eat a little more. Right? You don't affirm the delusions of somebody. You don't tell a schizophrenic that the voices that he hears in his head are real.
Dude,
right?
that's exactly the criticism we have of the left, right? I mean, they see a kid who is troubled, and they're going to enable them and be like, oh, okay, let's make this permanent. You have like some perspective that you're actually born in the wrong body. So let's start cutting off parts of your body and stopping your hormones from producing things that might counteract that, because we want to reaffirm what you're feeling right now rather than actually sit you down and try and lead you towards something that will lead to your long-term happiness and health, because that's what being a friend is looking for your long-term happiness and health.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
What you were talking about is actually an interesting thing, because I feel as if the rise of alternative media and dominating over legacy media over the last, let's say, a couple of years at the very least, where shows that will be online will get millions more views than your legacy TV networks and things of that nature. I feel as if the reason that has happened is because people have been looking for and trusting that alternative media are truth tellers. We are telling you exactly how we think and feel. You know what I'm saying? Like what you were describing there, that's what made alternative media popular. And I feel to me, that's why I felt like a sense of disappointment, that I'm like, look, dude, you're not part of legacy media, and you're cheapening everything that alternative media is supposed to be, because the whole point is, no, we're not sitting here with an agenda. We're not sitting here with a predisposition that we're trying to fit everything into a narrative. We're really just trying to figure out how to make the world a better place and telling you how we feel about a particular thing and what our reasons are for coming to those conclusions. And when you start seeing people who are identified as part of alternative media, who clearly seem to be bought and paid for, or like you're saying, enabling a particular position because they want to tell people what they think their audience wants to hear, you're just becoming legacy media. That's all you're doing. You're no different from legacy media. You're just the new form of legacy media.
Right. And because legacy media has a very bad relationship with the truth, and it doesn't matter how that relationship comes to be. If you have a bad relationship with the truth, I'm probably going to have a bad relationship with you. Right. I mean, just don't lie to me. Right. Or don't purposefully omit information, because lying by omission is almost worse than just lying in general. Right. So, I've seen a lot of things. I used to live in New York. I live in Tennessee now, but I used to live on Long Island. And I was deeply involved. A lot of people think I just do a funny voice, which is my favorite. They're like, what do you know? You're just some clown on the internet. I'm like, okay, well, sorry you think that. But I've been through a ton. I started a massive grassroots uprising on Long Island back in the fall of 2020. We had tens of thousands of people protesting COVID, big rallies all up and down Long Island when I lived there. I actually had our group was listed by the SPLC as a hate group, even though we didn't do anything. We went to school board meetings. New York Governor Kathy Hochul and then State Senator Anna Kaplan actually tried to push through a hate speech bill, an online hate speech bill, because of something I said on a podcast about, opposing the transgender cult. Right. So I've been through a lot, and that was all before, this voice went big on the internet, stuff like that. So, I've been through a ton. I moved to Tennessee, and all of that. So, but the biggest problem I have is folks who have a bad relationship with the truth, or are lying because they know because their lies will generate more engagement and clicks. I don't like clickbait, and it's unfortunate because every single algorithm, on every social media platform rewards clickbait.
Begs you.
TikTok, whether it's Instagram,
whether
it's Facebook, whether it's X, it's like it wants, no matter how many times Elon and people want to say that, oh no, we're going to get rid of the slop questions. The algorithm loves it because people engage with it, right? Do you agree? Like, don't ask me if I agree. I'm going to tell you whether or not I agree. You don't have to ask me that. But those one-liners and all those, it attracts a lot of engagement and the algorithm rewards it. These are the types of things that annoy me. Like, let's add to the conversation. Let's actually have a conversation. One of the things I do on my show is whenever I get somebody in the chat who disagrees with me, I give them my call-in number. I tell nobody else to call in except the person. And there have been several occasions where that person has called in and we've had a conversation about our disagreement. And one of those times we had to stop because he got vulgar. But the other time, we had about a 10-minute conversation about a disagreement and everybody had, their chance to speak. And we got through a conversation together and it was okay. Like we all wound up living. It was civil. It was nice. It was constructive. And I think that's what we're missing, right? We're in this like, oh, you disagree with me, you must be paid, or you disagree with me, you must be, so-and-so compromised or working for this person. And I'm like, how about I just have a different opinion?
Right.
The amount of people that I've been accused of taking money from, if just one of those people would pay me, I'd be in a much better place. I mean, I'd be in a much better financially. I mean, my life is great. I love it. I have no problem. But it's like, but like, people have accused me like you're taking money from Israel. I'm like, really? Because the checks don't seem to be coming in. Like, where's this money you speak of?
Yeah.
He must be getting lost in the mail. So, it is a very polarized environment though. And everybody's competing for the same likes, the same followers, the same clicks. And the truth is the real victim. That's the problem.
Unfortunately. I wanted to ask you, I mean, you clearly identify as MAGA, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
totally.
So do you think MAGA is stronger today than it was on election day or weaker?
I think the folks who have always been MAGA, it's like a contingent of people who are very supportive of Trump. Some will criticize when necessary, some won't. That bothers me. It's okay. I don't really think MAGA as a whole. So let's go back to the 2024 primary before anybody dropped out. Like, I think MAGA is unchanged from there. I think the coalition grew before the election because we were faced with a binary choice,
right.
Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And a lot of people said, I do not want to vote for Kamala Harris. I don't want her to be president. I'm voting for Trump.
Right.
I think MAGA, like the actual people who would say they identify as MAGA, who have the MAGA hat, stickers on their cars, trucks, etc., are enthusiastic about Donald Trump. I'm fairly certain that is relatively unchanged, and whatever has been shaken out has been replaced. But as far as the broad coalition, yeah, there's some issues. There's some fallout. But there's nothing really like existentially threatening to rally behind at this point. What is it going to look like in a year? I think a lot of those people who are maybe a little upset about the pace of things now or how the handling of some stuff has been. I'm not thrilled at how Epstein has been handled. I openly say I thought Pam Bondi should have been fired a couple of weeks ago. I think she handled it like an absolute novice. I don't like the way Trump has been messaging about the Epstein case. I don't think he's helping his case. That being said, there are other things that are going on that have direct impact on our lives, like tariffs, like various peace deals and ceasefires that are being worked out around the world, like illegal aliens being deported who are child sex criminals, right? So I think a lot of the people who may be dissatisfied, maybe a little disenchanted, maybe they feel a little disenfranchised by some of the recent moves of the administration, give it 8-9 months, see where those people are. I bet you a lot of those people will be coming back around because the alternative is what it was. We can't give power back to the radical left.
So how do you wrap your head? You brought up Epstein, so I wanted to get there eventually anyway. So let's go there now. How do you wrap your head around Trump's messaging? I have my way of looking at it, and my way of absorbing it. But I'm wondering, that I'm just one person, and I share my perspective as to why he's been doing what he's doing. But I'm wondering, like, how you wrap your head around it. I assume you don't believe that he ever partook of the, third party, right? Okay, so
no. How
do you wrap your head around his adamance that this go away?
All right, I think number one, when he referred to the Epstein files as a hoax, worded poorly, social media posts, so sometimes you can't detect kind of what people are saying. I interpreted it as the files are not a hoax. We know that there are files, right? That's not a hoax. the hoax that he was referring to wound up becoming the hoax that, he was somehow complicit in what Epstein was doing, either on the island or, the sex trafficking, et cetera. And that the Democrats were going to take his handling of the files and equate that with him being complicit with the crimes.
Right.
So that was the hoax. And that's how I interpreted it from the beginning. And so, that wasn't really something that I was like, why is he saying this? I kind of got what he meant. And I truly believe that's what he meant. As far as what go ahead.
No, so I'm wondering, why do you think he's so adamant to shut this conversation down?
Because I think he knows that there's nothing, that what people thought was there doesn't exist. Okay. Not that it didn't happen, not that there weren't clients. There obviously were. And there was a lot that went on that, we don't know about. But I think that, look, everyone thought there was a client list, right? In other words, like a list of names, a roster.
Here's who blackmailing. Right. Exactly.
Right. And that it was like this explicit list of names. And whenever I heard the term Epstein client list, I never once, not ever, thought that there was like a list that Jeffrey himself kept that said, like, here are the people who trafficked kids with me.
Here are the people who owe me for this month blackmail.
Right. Because what he was doing was criminal. Okay. And criminals usually don't document their crimes on spreadsheets explicitly. Okay. Like, I think we should understand that, put ourselves in the mind of somebody who doesn't want to be held accountable for their crimes, right? Not just him, but his associates. I always thought the list would be a list of names that investigators would have curated from various evidence sources. That list apparently is not there. Whether it ever existed or not, I don't think we're ever going to know. But apparently that list doesn't exist. The big smoking gun, like massive bombshell evidence that a lot of us were led to believe existed, it isn't there now. Whether it existed at one point or the other, we don't know. But I think Donald Trump is basically saying, look, what we thought was there isn't there. There's not enough there to have a conversation about. We should move on and we'll get out what we can when we can, but there are bigger fish to fry. And it gets a lot of people upset when they hear that a big issue for them isn't priority number one for the administration. So then you get these immediate illogical reactions, right? Illogical, like, hey, there are bigger fish to fry. If I say I care more about mass deportations, okay, than the Epstein files, people go, oh, so you're just okay with what Epstein did? I never said that, right? Ever said that. It's like the left, when they said in 2020, defund the police. And we were like, no, we like the police. And they're like, oh, so you're just okay with the police killing black people? Like, who said that?
Life is not that binary.
Nobody said that, right? So
here's the question I have for you, though.
You get these reactions where they're just like, oh, so you're just okay with, kiddie porn? It's like, no, I'm not okay with kiddie porn. I want justice for the victims, but like 120,000 users were using a network of websites that distributed child sexual abuse material. The ringleaders were all busted. You're not hearing about that because people say, well, the Epstein thing matters more. But like, does it? Does it? Or does something that's happening now matter more? Right. So I say, let's walk and chew gum. And it goes both ways. Like, I want there to be more transparency with Epstein. Don't get me wrong. But I really don't want to get distracted by Epstein and have children continue to be victimized today because we're worried about like the dead guy instead of the alive people. You know what I'm saying? So there's got to be a better balance.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you that I think that the real concern people have is, okay, so there's no FBI file. Let's assume that Merrick Garland or Maureen Comey or whoever it is that was running Biden's government deleted everything because there was too much stuff that they didn't like that was basically revealed in those files. So they just hit delete, 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 delete. I think the issue people have is, well, why not recreate those files now? Why not go out there and actually do the investigation? Talk to the victims, talk to Dershowitz, talk to Acosta. It's not like Acosta's dead. Talk to him about why it is that he cut that sweetheart deal. Why is it that we're not seeing further? Instead of saying we're done talking about it, you can come back and say, look, we thought we would find things that were useful when we got in here. And that's what we planned on revealing with you. When we started going through it, we saw that most of it was no more reliable than the Steele dossier. And there's a lot of crap in there. So there's nothing there of value to share with you. Instead, we're going to have our DOJ go out there and start an FBI going out there and do some real digging to get some real answers. And, we'll come back to you on this with a report in 6 months, a year as to where we are in those investigations. And we expect that we're, probably going to have some, hope we'll have some greater transparency and some greater information that we can actually share with you, rather than just saying, shut up and go away. If you don't shut up, you're not a fan of mine. That's what I think would have been a much healthier type of message. And it doesn't seem like we're ever going to get that from Trump. And to me, I'm not going to kid you. I love Trump, and I think that he's the greatest president easily in my lifetime. And you can make a case, of like the last century or more, that his policy work is that exceptional in general. I simply think that on this one issue, not only was the messaging poor, but the decision to basically sound as if you're done investigating it's a terrible mistake that I think is ultimately going to plague him for a lot longer than he realizes.
Yeah, he didn't handle it well. Like I'll be the first person to say, like, his messaging around Epstein was very bad. All right. I think he's frustrated because I don't think he thinks this is as big of an issue as his base thinks it is. And there's a disconnect. Okay. Between a good portion of his base and what he believes. And you're seeing that disconnect in real time. What would have, in a perfect world, because we're going back and we're saying, hey, what he should have done is this. In a perfect world, his attorney general should not have promised the moon on Fox News and delivered nothing. Okay.
Yep.
Like, she is the reason why we're having this conversation right now, because she went on Jesse Waters on February 26th. Okay. And said, the files are on my desk and they're being reviewed and there's a lot there and blah, blah, blah. Then she passed the buck to the FBI when she realized there was nothing there, did the binder thing, which is, I still don't know why she did that. That was like completely ridiculous. Comes out on Sean Hannity like a couple of days later and says, yeah, the FBI turned over so much more. We have all this. And then says nothing over the course of 3 or 4 months. And then on a Sunday on 4th of July weekend, this unsigned memo comes out and is like, oh yeah, by the way, there's nothing. Like that's worse. I believe Trump added fuel to the fire, but that's how it all started, because there would be no fire to add fuel to had Bondi just handled this like a normal person and not an engagement farmer, right? Like, right. She was literally clickbaiting on television, sensationalizing, and she was writing checks on TV that she was not sure whether or not her balance in her bank account could cover. And that's the problem.
Yeah. No, that's a pretty strong assessment. I wanted to ask you, we saw how after the Epstein thing came down, Trump started seemingly, to me, it felt like he was basically trying to find different deflection points. And like talking about, team names, I felt as if he was trying to rally the troops together during the first couple of weeks after the Epstein news broke over July 4th. And a lot of people take what happened with Obama and basically say, okay, he's trying to dangle red meat in order to quiet down the base being so upset about Epstein. And that all of a sudden entered Tulsi Gabbard to come in with this whole accusation that Obama was behind the Russian collusion hoax. Do you think that is reality, or do you think that my personal take? I'll share with you my personal take on this one first. My personal take is I do think that he brought it out as red meat, but I still think there's a lot more there than we realized. I think she's actually delivering, especially over the last couple of weeks. I feel as if we're seeing more and more to establish that Hillary, Obama, Clapper, Comey, Brennan, all of them were working together to try and basically derail Trump's presidency before it even started. But I'm wondering about what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I think Spygate, Obamagate, Russiagate, whatever you want to call it, is the biggest political spying scandal in American history, and I felt that way for the last 7 years. It's been 7 years since a lot of this information first started coming out. The Devin Nunes memo that was authored by Kash Patel was done in 2018, and that's when a lot of the Spygate stuff started coming out, right? Stefan Halper, Alexander Downer, these people that were actively spying on the Trump campaign, and they used the Steele dossier, which was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton, the DNC. They hired Perkins Coie law firm. They hired Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS hired Christopher Steele. He compiles this dossier, right? So like all of that has been I've known about this, but that's been my number one issue. Like for the last 7 years, that and the border. Like when I found out about Spygate in 2018, I was like, whoa, this is literally the crime of the century. Now, what makes me different than a lot of other people is when my pet issue, Spygate, was relegated to the back burner, it wasn't one of these things where, oh, well, this must mean Donald Trump is complicit in covering for the deep state. Man, I'm taking my ball and going home. Like that wasn't me. I was like, all right, eventually we'll get to it. So I personally think this is the most important issue because what you had was the Obama administration, a sitting president, trying to interfere in the 2016 election, trying to overturn the result of the 2016 election. They used the Mueller probe and the Russia probe to interfere in the 2018 midterms. They used the Russia probe and the non-existent connection to Russia, the PSYOP, the conditioning they put the American people through to falsely correlate or falsely tie Trump and Russia together. They used it in 2020 also, right? Because they tried to debunk Hunter Biden's laptop by calling it Russian disinformation. Why didn't they call it disinformation from another country? They used Russia because people were already conditioned to believe that Donald Trump was cozy with Russia, even though it wasn't true, right? That's three. They used it again in 2022, where people kept bringing up the laptop, trying to motivate the Republican base to come out and vote in the 2022 midterms. They suppressed it again. And then 2 weeks after that, CBS News came out and said, oh, by the way, the laptop was real. It wasn't Russia. So they used it to interfere in 4 straight election cycles. To me, that's the crime of the century, right? Like this is something that I have wanted to see answers for and accountability for a long time. Now, I'll tell you this, and this is one of those unpopular takes. It's not treason from a legal standpoint, okay? The statute, the treason statute was 18 U.S. Code section, I think it's 2381, right? Where it says that an act of treason has to qualify either as an act of giving aid to enemies who are at an open or at war with the United States in an open war. So that's not what's happening here. But 18 U.S. Code section 371, which is the conspiracy to defraud the United States, that absolutely is what went on. And testimony, public statements, the Hunter Biden letter, all within that 5-year statute of limitation window. That's still a felony. That's what you got to do to go after these people. I think they've got enough there. And I don't think this was just a distraction. I think this was something that Gabbard and the administration has been working on since they got in. Remember, Tulsi Gabbard was called a Russian asset a couple of years ago by Hillary Clinton herself because Tulsi Gabbard was doing things that Hillary didn't like. So she had an axe to grind and a bone to pick and a chip on her shoulder over it. John Ratcliffe, at the end of Trump's first term, was the acting director of national intelligence. He was starting to get to the bottom of it. Devin Nunes, obviously, since 2018, was starting to get to the bottom of it. So there's a lot of there. I know the timing kind of looks like distraction. Is it one way or the other? But I don't think so. And I am very happy that this is out in the forefront now because I believe this right here, Spygate, that's the deep state. Okay. And the same people who will be implicated with Epstein are most likely implicated with this anyway. That's the deep state. And you actually have a hot evidence trail to follow.
So that, because you're sort of leading into where I was gonna ask you what I thought might be a tough question, which was, you're saying that Epstein is important, but not that big a deal because it's ancient history and it's not going on anymore. So I was going to throw back at you. Couldn't someone say the same thing about Russian collusion hoax? That okay, that was 2016, and it's history and it's not there anymore. So why would you distinguish between Epstein and the Russian collusion hoax, saying that this one is highly relevant, whereas Epstein is basically ancient history?
Well, Epstein is important again for answers and transparency, but the way the conspiracy statute is written and the statute of limitations. So 18 U.S. Code Section 371 is the conspiracy to defraud the United States, has a 5-year statute of limitations. Mm-hmm. But it's a 5-year statute of limitations from the last overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Okay. So let's just say from October of 2020 onward, they were all quiet about it, which they haven't been. The Hunter Biden laptop memo, which said that Hunter Biden's laptop had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, was without question a furtherance of the conspiracy. Okay. Like they used Russia because they had already laid the groundwork to try and basically tell America, look, he's doing it again. Trump's doing it again. He's colluding with Russia again. Right. Like they did all that with the Hunter Biden memo. That was in October of 2020. That in and of itself is within the 5-year window. Okay. But public statements, testimonies, hearings, statements in the media, statements from their offices, those are also in furtherance of the same conspiracy. So there are many instances recently that would keep this within the 5-year statute of limitations where charges can be brought and probably will be brought for conspiracy.
So I'll tell you, I agree with a lot of what you said, but some of what you said I'm going to push back on. I agree with you, first and foremost, 100%. This is definitely not treason. Any attorney will tell you that this is definitely not treason. And I don't fault Trump and Gabbard for referring to it as treason because they're not attorneys and they're speaking colloquially. And they're not saying that charges of treason are appropriate here. They're just saying that this is treasonous. And I don't have a problem with them using that word, especially when we see how a judge said, the analogy I gave to my audience on this earlier was, a judge said that it's totally fine for people to call Trump the R word, even though he was found not guilty specifically of that charge because they're talking colloquially. So if talking colloquially is okay in that context, as far as ascribing to him a terrible label, I have no problem at all with both Gabbard and Trump routinely saying this was treason, this was treason.
I agree with that. I agree with that because they're speaking colloquially and that's what I say. Like if you're speaking with friends and you want to be like, this is treasonous, no issue, right? Yeah. It's just that in a court of law, like legally, letter of the law, like black and white,
it's not even close.
On the page,
it's not close.
It does not meet the standard for treason.
Right. And I agree with you as far as 18 U.S.C. 371, a conspiracy to commit fraud against the United States. 100% I agree with you on that. I would disagree with you on one element that you said, because when you're talking about an overt act, it has to be an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. So you referred to the 51 agents there. I would say that that's not furthering the conspiracy. That's taking advantage of a situation that was created via the conspiracy. So the objective there is not to make the conspiracy more airtight or protect it from being revealed. It's, hey, we have this situation, so let's use it. And I don't think that would qualify as an overt act. However, at the same time, I agree with you that there have been continuous overt acts to try and cover up the conspiracy. I would say even within the last 2 weeks, when Barack Obama is sending out messages saying, no, this was all fine, and everything here was completely legal, and he goes out there and has his people release a message like that. When Brennan goes out and testifies to Congress and lies to them saying, hey, we didn't use the Steele dossier at all, whereas a House Intelligence Committee found that it was foundational for that January 2017 memo. And he's lying to them a couple of years ago. He's lying to Matt Gaetz, and when he's being questioned by Matt Gaetz a couple of years ago. These are overt acts. And once you have an overt act by anyone, any participant in the conspiracy, it keeps it alive for all of the conspirators.
That's right, because they're all conspirators and all conspiring together. So the in the eyes of the law, one conspirator furthering the conspiracy is doing so on behalf of all of them. And that's where we are. So the letter, I could see the argument that the letter may not be an overt act, but there have been overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy from, as recent as 2022, 2023, and maybe, as you said, a couple weeks ago, right? Yeah. People still covering up saying this is not what A, B, and C were doing, or, so they have the opportunity to get them. I believe it's going to be conspiracy. And if you listen to John Ratcliffe, and he was on with Maria Bartiromo, was this most recent Sunday. She asked him, is this treason? And he must have said the word conspiracy 8 times in his answer in about 2 minutes, right? So that's where they're going. They're going the route of 18 U.S. Code Section 371.
And the other reason is because you have statute of limitations problems if you don't go with conspiracy. Because if you try tying it into sedition, for example, which you could make an argument for sedition, which is 18 U.S.C. 2384, I think, or 83, maybe it's 83, that you could make an argument. And I pulled up the statute here for my audience last week, and you could make the argument for sedition, but sedition alone, then you're going to have a statute of limitations issue, because during the time they're engaging in that sedition, that was the seditious acts probably expire once Obama leaves office. But conspiracy,
they can't use force anymore, right? But the conspiracy does not. Right.
Well, right. Although when I was looking up 18 U.S.C. 2383, I was actually interpreting it as not always necessitating force. And this is something that I haven't done the research on, the legal research on this. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I am an attorney. That's why I go with good law.
Yeah, no, I am aware of that. That's why I'm stoked to be talking to you about this, because we're doing actual statute talk, which
yes.
I'm not an attorney, but I'm not an attorney, but I will look up the actual statutory language so I understand the laws better. Because I could just be somebody going treason, and then I'm like, well, does it apply? And I read it, and I was like, oh, that doesn't apply. Legally, it doesn't apply. It doesn't meet the threshold. So I'm stoked that that you're an attorney and we're doing this, because I'm learning, and I think this is a great conversation. It shows you that we're serious people. I think that's the bottom line. That's a cool thing. So
J.Ed Schwabek saying, Brian, I salute you and support you. God bless you. I blow the horn for the bigger chat. So you won't. I don't think you hear it though. I don't think you.
I hear the horn. Oh yeah.
Do you? And Brian Oldenkamp also. God bless you, my brother. Thank you so very much. I'm very stoked to be talking to Shawn, only because. Like I said in my opening, I wasn't. I know you might have thought I was blowing smoke. I will try, and when I have a new guest, I'll try to, pump them up, but I'll always do it with things that I believe, because I just want to say this is something that this is what I actually think is an appropriate thing to say about this guest. So that's why I'll tailor it. And I do think that you and I seem to see eye to eye without ever having a conversation before. A couple of days ago when I asked you if you can come on the show, and I was like, man, that guy gets it right a lot. So I want to share with you this thing here. This is the 18 U.S.C. 2384 is sedition. This is seditious conspiracy. Okay. So it says, if 2 or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy. Now all the rest of these you're going to see are different types of ways you can violate. Right, you can violate in 18 U.S.C. 2384. So to destroy by force the government, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force. All these have force. By force, prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law, take or possess any property in the United States contrary to the authority thereof. All these imply a level of force. What I would argue, though, is that 18 U.S.C. 2384 could still work, even though there was no actual force being used, in the sense that they are conspiring to overthrow, and this does not require force. This, if you're charging under 18 U.S.C. 2384, because you put a period here.
That's a good point.
And leave out the put down. You're just saying for conspiring to overthrow. They were conspiring to overthrow the Trump administration. They were conspiring to try and make Trump feel, first and foremost, that Russia is a problem, right? I mean, even if it wasn't naming Trump specifically, but overhyping to Trump intentionally, misleading him when they know information is not A, and then telling him it is A, is purposefully misleading him to harm or affect the direction that his administration would take over the next 4 years. It's going to have that impact on him. It happened to be targeted toward him specifically and individually. But even if it wouldn't have that impact, they're overthrowing what his normal agenda would be. Now, in this context, they're trying to overthrow him far more directly because they're basically saying that he's not someone who's a duly elected president. He doesn't deserve to be in the White House. He's someone who needs to be investigated, that he's potentially a Russian asset. He's a Kremlin puppet, and that he's basically a threat to the very people he's supposed to be leading. And all of that was a conspiracy to overthrow his administration and basically handcuff them so that no one would want to trust them, rely on him, and that he would be bogged down rather than taking care of running the country the way that he was this duly elected president was chosen by his constituents. And accordingly, I do think that there was a conspiracy to overthrow the government, and that charge could be leveled against all of them: Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Comey. With what we've seen so far over this week, Hillary Clinton, and probably countless other names of smaller fish that you and I wouldn't know without looking it up. So that's why I think 18 U.S.C. I agree with you that you definitely should level a charge for 18 U.S.C. 3371, which is defrauding the government, conspiracy to defraud the government. But I still wouldn't let go of this one, because this one has a charge of up to 20 years. It's a far more serious.
It does say conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force.
These are all ors, right?
By force.
Yeah, exactly.
So the case could be made. The case could be made. And you could, I guess, hit him with, 2384 and 371. You may get a conviction on 371 and not on 2384, but at least you get something.
Plus, when you charge it, you're also more likely to get a plea deal. If they see that they're facing potentially 20 years and the charge doesn't get tossed, and they feel like they're going to have to walk into a trial with facing potentially 20 years, you're much more likely to get a plea deal. You're much more likely to get
what they hit Enrique Tarrio with, I think, over J6, right? Seditious conspiracy. And they argued the force aspect was organizing people to storm the Capitol.
Right. I think that rings a bell. But there you have the obvious force. So it's not really the same. It's not the same element that we're really attacking here. But yeah, it's definitely. And here's the thing. Ideally, in an ideal situation, you want to throw this charge, and I even said that you could potentially throw a RICO charge at them, and say that this was the same way they threw a RICO charge at Trump in Georgia, saying that your whole administration was basically a corrupt organization that was, trying to engage in this corrupt activity. That you can an ambitious prosecutor could similarly say that all of them were working in a corrupt organization, and that there was, one act after another, an attempt to defraud, and fraud is an element which could lead in to support a RICO charge. And accordingly, that you could level a RICO charge against them. Not that I really love the idea of RICO being used, because I think it's really supposed to be for a more mafia type of extortion type of situation.
Right.
And I feel like it was bastardized. Like I hate seeing the law bastardized, but it's been bastardized against us, and it's certainly been recognized as a valid way of you understand what I'm saying when I'm saying bastardized? Like
yes.
So for my audience who may not be familiar with how I'm using that term, it's the objective of the law was to do this, and we're using it in a whole other way based on the fact that it could be read to apply in this completely different situation that the drafters of the statute never had
they
in
perverted
mind.
it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So when they perverted, and that's what they did in order to drop those charges on Trump down in Georgia. And I'm like, why would we not do this over here? Why would we not label that? Why would we not try going after them on RICO? It could get tossed, but it couldn't hurt to try.
It can't hurt to try. No, I can't hurt to try. And I think you're right, though, on the bastardization or the perversion of RICO. But, according to AOC, by the way, RICO is not a crime. Remember when she said that? RICO is not a crime. I said, okay, well.
There's a lot of Puertos.
Just stupid. just she's one of the dumbest people alive. But no, I think, look, you could take a shot on 2384 because you're not going to basically throw your whole case at it. Right. Because I think we know at the very least there's probably enough there to get them on 371.
Yes.
Right. So now the other ultimate question becomes, can you get a DC jury to convict these people? Because that's the biggest, I think that's the biggest obstacle here.
No, you never will. You have no chance, dude.
But you still have the process at this point. Then at this point, the process has to be the punishment, because you're not going to actually get the conviction.
No, that's not the way you go. The way you go is you try to get it down in Florida, and you basically say that, assuming, and this would depend on certain facts. This would depend on certain facts.
Okay.
Meaning, and the facts I'm referring to is that raid in Mar-a-Lago. A lot of people speculated that the objective was to take from him all the documents related to Operation Crossfire Hurricane, and that was an attempt to try. That was a furtherance of the conspiracy.
Okay.
And based on that, use that as the jurisdiction to try and bring these charges. And that if you can manage to get in Florida, which I admit would be tough, and you need to have that. I don't know that those documents were there in Mar-a-Lago, right? I don't know what was there. We would need Trump to tell us that what documents were there. But assuming that it is there, then in theory you can have a basis to bring these charges in Florida. And in Florida, there you got a pretty fair roll of the dice, because in DC you have no chance. You're a dead man walking.
Yeah, you're dealing with a jury pool that is going to be composed of people who voted 95%, Democrat. So it's going to be very tough to secure the conviction.
I was in DC for Steve Bannon's trial. So I went down there to cover it. So I attended it in person. Okay. While I was there, so I met this other attorney who's an appeals attorney who's much more successful than most attorneys I've ever met in my life. And he was telling me his billable was like $2,000 an hour or some crazy number. And he actually, one of his clients was Rico Tario. This is while Rico's case was still pending. He invited me. He's like, let's go check out a voir dire that's happening in a different courtroom of one of the J6 defendants, because I'm curious to see how this is going, so I could sort of see what I should be anticipating. This is what we saw. Okay, it was terrifying. It was terrifying. They were all watching. That was back when the whole kangaroo court of like the J6 committee hearings was going on. Okay.
Oh yeah.
These folks had it on TiVo. These folks would not miss a minute of it. They were swallowing every stupid, ridiculous lie that was being thrown at them, and waiting for the next day with bated breath so they could like, oh my gosh, what more are we going to learn about January 6th? But more than that, in this particular voir dire I was watching of just some random J6 defendant, I didn't even remember his name. They gave the jury, or the potential juries of voir dire, which is questions about themselves individually to fill out, so they can see that the attorneys for both sides could see if they have some reason to be worried about bias that would be, that they couldn't, overcome. Every person there, almost without exception, every person they called up one by one, juror after juror. So I notice here that you have a sister who works for Amy Klobuchar. I notice here that your uncle works for MSNBC. I notice here everyone who in DC, if they don't directly work for the deep state, they have an immediate relative who works for the deep state, a spouse, a child, a sibling, a parent. They're all in bed with the deep state. And that's why when Durham brought those stupid, tiny 3 measly charges, he only managed to get convictions on, he settled with one of them and got, there were 2 of them ended up being acquittals, because they basically are so tilted to the left that you're a dead man walking. And I'll tell you this much, I almost don't want it to come if it's going to be in DC, because it's just going to be humiliating. It's going to look as if they're vindicated. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
See, they're found not guilty.
Right,
this was all a persecution. This was Trump trying to persecute. And thank God a jury saw the truth and they acquitted them. That's what's going to happen.
That will be the headline. That will be the talking point for sure if they're acquitted.
Yeah. So I'm a little nervous about the idea of just throwing them out there in DC, because I think you have no chance there. Let me get to a couple of these notes here. So again, Jay Schwalbach saying, Brian, I salute you and support you. Thank you. 51 intelligence officials were part of a conspiracy. I think that's a different conspiracy. That's not the same. I wouldn't label. I see what he's saying there, but they're using that conspiracy to create a brand new conspiracy is how it sort of reads to me. I don't know if that makes sense though. Joe, you can't rewrite the law to make it work. Forces in law for reason. Otherwise, it'd be too broad with no limiting principle. I'll tell you this much. When I pull this up here, Allegan, there's no reason they wouldn't say force right here. Conspire to overthrow by force. And then you say put down or to destroy by force. There's no reason they couldn't have done it that way. So I'm reading it as it looks to me. Just a quick note, I survived today. Oh, thank God. Kimmy Hunt is undergoing cancer treatments. I have one more
God
treatment.
bless you, Kimmy.
Yeah, the doctor says tumor is now non-visible and non-palpable. Beautiful.
Congratulations. Keep fighting.
Amen.
Stay strong.
She's a warrior. You all's prayers and support have helped save my life. Give, send, go, Kimmy guy. Yes, if you can, I'll try to put a link up there when I catch a moment to Kimmy's, because Kimmy's got a lot of bills now as far as, needing help and assistance while she's recouping from this. So if you guys can help her out, that would be very, very cool of you. I personally have given, and I would recommend to anyone. Georgia RICO law is very broad. Federal RICO law is much more limited. How do you make federal RICO law apply? I haven't looked at the distinctions between Georgia RICO law and federal RICO law. When I saw federal RICO law and I was looking through it, I was able to make it apply based on I think it was on the fraud element of it, as I recall. But I looked at it like, the day that Tulsi came out, and I've had dealing with a lot of things since. Only way we get any charge stick is if DC District Court is dissolved first. You're never going to see that. You're not going to see the dissolution of the DC Circuit Court. Not that that shouldn't happen, because it certainly should. I'm curious what your thoughts are about Hillary. Do you think charges are going to end up? What do you project happening here with this? Do you expect that there are going to be charges? What timeline do you think we're going to be looking at? What are your thoughts? What's your hope versus what's your expectations? Give me both of those.
I hope we see charges all the way up to Hillary. I don't think we're going to see Hillary on the list, but I hope we do. James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, I think those guys will get charged. I don't believe Obama will be charged. I think, presidential immunity is a massive obstacle to overcome. Even Trump said as much last week. He said, Obama owes me big because of immunity and all of that. So I don't expect Obama to be charged. Timeline, I don't know how long it's going to take to get this done, but, and especially with Pam Bondi's desk, that desk, things go missing. So hopefully the case doesn't wind up there. But I do expect to see, some medium size. The big fish, obviously Obama, the Clintons, etc. Obama, I think, is out. The Clintons, maybe, 20%, 30% chance. But Comey, Brennan, Clapper, those guys in that circle, I think are the best chance. No immunity. Obviously, they were explicitly, furthering the conspiracy. So I think those are the guys that this is going to fall on.
You think John Brennan and Clapper and Comey?
Yeah, I think those guys. And I think, honestly, there's somebody in that group, maybe all three of them, who are going to be very loose-lipped. They're self-serving. And I think those guys will be the ones, that somebody will flip.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you definitely won't be hoping that at least one of them ends up flipping. I'll tell you this. I argued with 3 other attorneys who were all saying that Obama has immunity, and I was arguing, I disagree that he definitely has immunity. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to be charged. It's sort of like because of and I think the immunity will dissuade the DOJ from going after him. That and the political backlash. I think Trump is wrong on the law. I mean, he's also wrong on treason. So I'm not expecting a legal conclusion from Trump as to whether or not Obama has immunity. But I think that you actually could make a case that under Trump v. USA, these are official acts, and that he actually stepped outside of the protections of official acts because what he did was manifestly beyond his authority. He doesn't have authority to lie to the president-elect. He doesn't have authority to mislead the president-elect. And accordingly, that I think that it wouldn't work. But like the whole thing with the pardons, and one of the things I tell my audience is that the concept of a blanket pardon, right? The idea that I'm not naming what crimes I'm pardoning you from. I'm just saying you cannot be held accountable, Fauci, right? No matter what you did.
Right.
So I don't think that that's a valid pardon. I don't think a president has a capacity to do that.
I think that's the only way you could challenge that pardon too, by the way.
Right.
Because I don't think the auto pen is challengeable, because as long as he was aware of it, it seems to be fine. But I do agree that there has to be some sort of clarity on, can you just pardon somebody for things that aren't specified? Like, so when Jimmy Carter pardoned the Vietnam draft dodgers, they were pardoned for draft dodging, right? They weren't pardoned for if some guy was on heroin, right? And they got him for being a drug dealer. Like, no, I got a pardon. Well, you got a pardon for dodging the draft, not for dealing drugs, right?
Right, precisely.
So there was a scope, right? There was like, here's what you were pardoned for. But like you said, Fauci and all these, like, it was just, you're pardoned for whatever we think you're pardoned for. Like that. That's, I think, the angle to attack the pardons if they're going to be attacked and challenged.
And I think that Trump would be wise to do so. I think he'd be very wise for himself to do so. Only because if you think about it, we should anticipate that one day, unfortunately, there will be a Democrat in the White House, and that they will be seeking to engage in retribution. And at that time, they're going to try and find some basis to try and go after Donald himself. If he's not sufficiently cogent at that time, that they would go after his kids, they would go after his family, and basically try to take him down. I mean, that's what, if I'm Donald Trump, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, all right, my offspring are in the line of fire here from the next Democrat DOJ that comes into power. So accordingly, I want to know if I can give them a blanket pardon or not, right? If my blanket pardon is going to work. So why wouldn't you want to test out and say to your DOJ, hey, let's go see if, in fact, these blanket pardons, if a president has that power, and try and fight that all the way up to the Supreme Court and get a ruling from the Supreme Court, yes, this works, or no, it doesn't work. And the only way you can get that ruling is if people like Fauci are charged, or other people pardoned by Biden are charged. And instead of fighting about the auto pen, you just say the nature of a pardon has to be for particular crimes, not that I'm conferring upon you angel-like status that you're okay no matter what you did. I don't even know what you did, but I'm just saying you're okay. That to me doesn't make sense as far as being a proper pardon. And I think if Trump can find out whether or not it works, then he'll know whether or not a pardon that he gives his own kids, which he should, he'd be stupid not to, that if he gives them a blanket pardon, is that something that will hold up in court or not? Why not test it on your enemies rather than seeing if it works when it's protecting your friends and family? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Clarity is important, period. Yeah. So you need to know what the boundaries are, what the scope is, because the president's pardon power is extremely broad. It's almost like it's essentially absolute, but is it, right? Like, that's the ultimate question. Like, where does it stop? Okay. Can you pardon something? Can you pardon somebody for something that is not named? Right. Like,
or that you don't know about
on that.
You yourself don't know about.
Right. So we need the answer on that, period. Yeah. Like that we need answered for the sake of going forward. Right. Yeah. Not just for what Biden did, but for the sake of going forward.
Because the way they've been effective so far is people, I assume prosecutors have seen the pardon and say, well, I'm not going to bother charging because it's not going to work. In other words, the way the law works is people just assume they understand what the law is, but it only really becomes solidified that this is the law once it gets challenged in court, and then it works its way through the court system and we get a definitive statement, this is the law, or no, you're wrong. Like, that's what we saw happen with presidential immunity. right? We all had assumptions about what presidential immunity was. Some people assumed this way, some people assumed that way. And I think most people assumed there was presidential immunity, but it was only definitively there once it worked its way. Once he gets charged, it starts with the person being charged. He gets charged,
Right.
and then it gets challenged, and we're like, does this immunity exist? Does it not exist?
And then you start getting precedent. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's the same thing with these pardons, with these very broad pardons. I think that they haven't been challenged yet because people assume they're okay. But if I was a prosecutor, I'd be going after them. And for all these, I want to go after Fauci. I think that guy is responsible for the deaths of millions of people. I would be going after so many of these people who are listed as being pardoned. I would go after the J6 committee and all the pardons that were issued there for their defrauding for them defrauding the United States of America, because I think that entire committee was a sham committee that had sham findings and had a narrative that they built into what they were doing. And I think that it was actionable, because I think that they stoke so much division in this country improperly by basically they've maligned us. You know what I'm saying? They've maligned us into basically portraying us as if we're some unruly bunch of crazy hooligans who, if we don't get what we want, we're going to go marching in there with guns a-blazing, which is what a lot of people in DC think happened. That, that it was like this violent insurrection where everyone was there seeking out blood, which that just never happened. So, yeah. So I had a couple of other questions. So the question I promised to get an answer from you on was something that will come back to the beginning. So I want to ask you about this. To the extent there are flaws in MAGA right now, right? The grifters or the fracturing or stuff of that nature. Do you think that needs a fix, or you seem to come across to me as if you're of the opinion that this is ultimately just going to sort itself out? All we need is another election.
I think in a way it's going to sort itself out, because, and maybe not for everybody. Okay. But, and maybe some of them won't tell you, that they are still firmly in the MAGA camp. If there's one thing I've seen a lot about folks who are on the internet, the majority of them are frauds. It doesn't take much more than going to one of these conventions. I've been to a bunch, and seeing people who, put themselves out there as morally upstanding Christian activists, and watching them do drugs and, cheat on spouses. Yeah, I've seen it. Okay. I'm not going to name names right now, but I've seen it from a lot of people. It's gross. It's degenerate, right? So these people will tell you they're doing something in front of the camera, and then when the cameras are off, do something else. And I think, there may be a ton of people who are, I'm done with Trump. I'm not voting for him ever again. Or I'm not voting Republican ever again, or I'm not getting active in the midterms, and then they'll go vote, or something along those lines. As far as the online, influencers and podcasts and where the conversations go, I think I do think most of it's going to sort itself out. You'll lose a few of the folks that were there in 2024, and they'll be replaced by some new up and coming folks who, want their spot, right? It's churn. It's, Tom Brady retired and Patrick Mahomes is now the best quarterback in the NFL. And then, he'll go by the wayside and somebody else will wind up being, you know what I'm saying? So I do believe it'll work itself out. I'm not overly concerned about it. I don't think it's at the point of existential crisis. There's no doubt that there are factions that are not getting along. But I don't think it's something to panic about. And I think, as the administration continues to put up wins, because the administration has had more wins than losses. The Epstein situation is a loss. It was handled poorly. But when you look at the amount of victories that we've had, getting tax cuts, the tariffs being leveraged into trade deals, the border being shut down essentially instantly, You do have an uptick now in deportations. They're getting a lot of the bad guys out. They're hitting a lot of these locations that people thought they were never going to go to, these farms, etc. You have inflation cooling, you have GDP growing, you have a lot of investment that is pouring into the country. There's a lot more wins than there are losses, and winning is contagious, and it will attract people. And once people are over with being upset to the point of disillusionment and disenfranchisement, I think they'll want to be a part of the winning again, and we'll come back around. And come election season, I'm not going to be like, no, I can't trust. By all means, tell everybody to vote. Okay. As far as the credibility of these people, I'll always attack their credibility if I don't believe they should have it.
You want to name names right now of people whose credibility you really want to attack.
Well, credibility. I mean, I think let's be honest. I mean, I'll tell you that I think the Hodge twins are completely and totally frauds. And I refer to them as woke right, because recently on their podcast, they had transgender, if you want to call him that, Blair White. This is a biological male. If it was Dylan Mulvaney, we would call him a biological male. They decided that Blair White was a female, okay, on their show, simply because Blair White shared the same view on Israel as they did, right? So this is why we call it woke, okay? Woke left, men or women. Woke right, men or women, right? Candace Owens is another one. I think she's off her rocker. I know a lot of people who are like, no, Brigitte Macron is a man. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think the Macrons would bring this lawsuit if that wasn't the case, right? Like, I'm not sure about it. And then, she did commit actual malice. And if you read the ruling in France where people were like, oh, well, Macron lost his case in France. Well, they lost on appeal, but it has nothing to do. The ruling had nothing to do with her biology and everything to do with under French law. The folks that were making the comments didn't do so out of malice, but in the United States, due to the fact that Candace, monetized it and has doubled and tripled down and said, you were born a man and you'll die a man. And then came out with this bizarre theory that Brigitte died and passed on her identity like a Costco membership to her brother. It's like, you may now shop at Costco. You are now Brigitte. Like, she's doubling down on things like, I don't think she's going to win that case, right? So another person, I think, credibility, she shouldn't have much, okay? Those are some of the people. I'll throw Alex Jones out there. I think he's had a couple of oopsie moments recently. Take Sandy Hook out of the equation. Comparing Donald Trump to George W. Bush, I think is a little crazy. I'm just going to, these are people, again, I'm not saying these are bad people. Candace, I don't think is a good person. The Hodge twins, I think, are too dumb to be bad people. Alex Jones, I don't think is a bad guy. I think he's got the right intentions. I just think he's a little cuckoo sometimes, right? Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Tucker Carlson's another one. I think he's a good person. I think he has waded into, interesting waters, and we'll see where it goes.
I mean, I'll tell you, I happen to call the Hodge twins Milli Vanilli.
I call them the Haji twins because they're
the Haji twins.
Yeah, because of their stance on all that. So
I don't know if you realize that sometimes you accidentally do the Trump voice without.
I do on accident. I do it sometimes.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I haven't asked for it out of respect because I don't think you're a one-trick pony, and I don't want to treat you like that. Certainly your first time on my show, I'm definitely not gonna. I'm not gonna have you. I'm not going to say, dance for me, do the most. But and I really wanted to get your take about a lot of these things. You use the term woke right, and a lot of people don't really understand what that means. How do you understand the term woke right?
Well, I look at people who, they say they're on the right. Maybe they are conservative. They say they're conservative, Trump supporters, whatever. But they behave like leftists. Okay. Again, the Haji twins, came out and said Blair White, who is a biological male, is a woman. She's our girl, is what they put. Not a girl. Okay. Like, period. That's something the left would do, though, right? Like the left, men are women. Men can be women.
Right.
The right are like, no, they can't. Except when they agree with you on Israel, now they can be women. Okay. That's wokish, right? Yeah. There's a lot of people who will weaponize their followers against other people, to dox, to slander, to intimidate, that's cancel culture. Okay. I don't believe in that. I don't say, hey, all of my hundreds of thousands of followers on X, go attack this person and shame them. Like I'll highlight stupidity. I will not say, get me their address or let's get them let's put them on lists. Let's go on our Discord channels and mass report them and get their account. This is what a lot of people on the quote unquote woke right will do. They will weaponize their following.
So the tactics are leftist
behavior. Yeah. I mean, they're the only thing separating them from actually being leftists is who they say they vote for. That's it. In some cases, not in all, but in many of these cases, when I see that type of behavior on display, I say that's woke right. Yes, I say that's woke right. The woke left believes that white people are the source of all their problems. The woke right believes that Jews are the source of all their problems. Literally, it's interchangeable, right? If somebody does something that Nick Fuentes doesn't like, his first thing is they're Jewish, right? On the left, it's like, well, it must be the patriarchy or an old white guy, right? So, it's very similar where they will cast a group of people off as another group of people. The tactics, the behavior, very similar to leftists.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with you that we've seen a shocking display of people just embracing tactics like trying to cancel or running to their following. Like, they do the quote tweet thing in order to try and say, support me, my fans, and give me lots of likes when I dunk on this person who disagreed with me or made a joke about my take on something. And it's like, okay, all right, you're not trying to win an argument. You're not trying to prove a point. You're trying to win an argument. And and not even winning an argument, you're getting the temporary salve of your ego by basically having people tell you we love you and you're great, even if what you just said was moronic. And that's everything about what the left has been about. It's been about even if you're thoroughly hollow and useless, we're going to tell you how stunning and brave you are. And that's what we're seeing come from the left. But you touched on Israel, so I want to get to that, which is a topic I tend to avoid here for a myriad of different reasons. But I am going to, because it's relevant to this issue that we're discussing as far as the fracturing in MAGA. Do you think that this? I do think that this might be an issue. This is the first issue we saw where there's just a sharp schism in MAGA about the topic of Israel. Do you think that has made any sort of permanent split?
I think there has been very, very staunch disagreements, but I think those things can be solved with conversations because, like, I support Israel, okay? Like, I support their right to exist. And when I say that, I don't like Bibi Netanyahu, okay? I'm not a fan of his. I think he's a little too bomb happy, a little too reckless. I don't believe he earned the nickname Dick Cheney of the Middle East on accident, right? So when I say, like, I support Israel, I don't support like the government of Israel. I'm talking about the right of the Jews to their homeland, right? Like the Jewish people, the homeland of Israel. Okay. It's outlined in the Bible, all of it. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. I also don't support sending endless amounts of money to any country. Okay. Israel, Ukraine, the Congo, Uganda, Kenya. I don't care. The money should not be going. There should not be freebies. Okay. Now, in many cases, the money that we send to Israel is repaid through weapon sales, etc. And as a matter of fact, when Israel is not at war, like they are now, but then when they're not at war, we usually profit off of them, right? Meaning we will send about $3 billion to them, but we'll receive about $4.2 billion back. So we profit about $1 billion, $1.2 billion a year.
How do we get 4.2 billion back? Where's that come from?
Indirect spending, right? So they'll purchase weapons from us primarily.
Right.
But so if we send them X amount of aid, it will generally be repaid back with interest. That's a relationship I can live with. Freebies, I can't live with. I do think the Israel stuff is mischaracterized a lot. I think that a lot of people that start coming in and go, AIPAC is an American group. Okay. This is the American Israeli Political Action Committee. It's not a foreign country. Do they have an interest in protecting Israelis and supporting Israel? Sure, they do. But it's a domestic organization. Okay. It's not foreign money. So I think there's a lot of mischaracterization that surrounds Israel. And I think conversations will help here. Conversations will help. And yelling at each other and, declaring someone got money from this, that, or the other won't. Again, I don't like just sending blank checks to countries. So doing that, whether it's Israel, Ukraine, or anybody else, I'm not okay with. This is not about supporting a foreign government. It's about supporting the right of the Jews to have the place they call home.
It's interesting because, I've gone into various X spaces talking about Israel with strong Zionist flavor in them, and Stealth Medical, for example, right?
Yeah.
She's so whenever I join her panel, she'll whenever I join her chat, she'll bring me on up there, and I've said precisely like what you've been saying, where I was like, and they tell me like they don't get money. They spend $37 billion a year on Patriot missiles to defend themselves from missiles, and they pay 34, and that the other $3 billion is covered by the United States. And it's, if they're getting a 10% discount on their missiles, so that's not anything. And I say back to that, no, if the 10% was coming from Raytheon, then that would be totally fine. But it's coming from the American taxpayer. That's why it's a problem. And at the end of the day, Israel's been around for 75 years. They're grown. They should be standing on their own 2 feet, if only for their own self-interest, if only not to give justifiable basis for Americans to question, why the hell are we doing this? And I have family living in Israel. Okay. I've been there many times myself. And, I love the fact that it's the Jewish homeland, and I love visiting there. But at the same time, I'm an American, and my perspective is, hey, look, I have lots of friends. None of my friends am I giving them tons of money every year. That's not a friendship. A friendship is, we like each other, we'll support each other in times of crisis, and maybe consult with each other, which would mean like sharing intelligence, but, and work in good faith with each other and do business with each other. But you're not my kid, and I'm not giving you money. So I'm exactly where you're at. And I think that for Israel's own sake, they would be in a much stronger position if they would just find a way to either get Raytheon to cut their rates by 10% and say, we're giving you a discount here because you're such a loyal customer, or to basically or figure out a way to come up with the $3 billion on their own, but stop taking the money, because it's
self-reliance makes you stronger. 100%. It does. And I don't disagree with anything that you said. And I also, I'm sure that if you say that to, a Zionist heavy space, that people will say, oh, you sound like the woke, right? Like I think that's what you said, what I said. Like, this is a completely reasonable America first position, right? I think that's the most important thing here, is that, like, I want to put my country is the United States of America. I want the best interest of my country to come before any other country in the world. Okay. That's it. And that's it. Okay. They're like, well, what about Israel? I'm like, no, I want our interests to come. Like, if there was a choice right now, a binary choice, and it was like, spend $3 billion on mass deportations in the United States, or spend $3 billion to support Israel's war against Hamas, 10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100, 1,000 times out of 1,000, $3 billion domestically on the deportations, hands down. Okay. So people are like, you're Israel first. I'm not Israel first. No. I support them. If you're asking me binary choice, Israel or Hamas, Israel. I don't like terrorists. I'm not a big fan of them. Okay. But if you're asking me the question, if the question is binary and it's Israel versus America, where do you want to spend your money? America.
Every time. Every time. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I will tell you that the hot take that I don't know if I've ever expressed on this show before, but you inspired me. My hot take is I don't have a problem with Bibi. I'll tell you right now. I know people say he's bomb. I know it's very easy for people to say that Bibi is Adolf, but I think that I see a lot of similarities as a leader to Donald Trump. I think
it's similar. He's
more like Donald Trump than any other world leader, I think, right now. Maybe that Polish guy, I forget his name, or there's a Hungarian out there. I guess people will say Mr. Afuera.
Victor Orban.
Yeah, Viktor Orban in Hungary.
Javier Milei is very Trumpish.
Yeah, Afuera is Trumpish. I agree with you.
Bolsonaro, when he was leading Brazil, I think would be.
What I mean by that is this. I think he's completely Israel first. Like he has a very, very loyal Israel first. And I am of the opinion that every leader should be of that opinion. It's my country first. I have to look out for my country's interests first. That's why I was elected. That's why I was chosen to be in this position. So he should be the same way Viktor Orban should be Hungary first. And Milei,
by the way, and this is a hot take, right? But the same way that Vladimir Putin is Russia first.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't like him. I don't trust him, but I understand why he's doing what he's doing.
You could also understand why if you were Russian, you would like him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like if you were Russian, you'd be like, hey, I think the guy might be a psychopath. He might not be in his personal life. He might be, kind of a terrible person, but at the same time, I think that he's looking out for my country's interests and putting them above other interests. And we're living in a world right now with the World Economic Forum, where there's this notion that the world is a better place if we all pretend that there's no boundaries between countries. And they're
looking to do like a global communism, right? You'll own nothing and be happy, and we'll all pass the peace pipe around and kumbaya. The problem with communism and socialism is it's never for the communists and the socialists. It's for the people. Okay. The leaders live like elites because they're the leaders. Oh, we're going to make the decisions on behalf of blah, 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 blah. Right. So with the WEF, with the UN, with the EU, BRICS, all these multinational alliances, NATO, all of it. If we just get back to everybody puts their own country first, and the best will be the best, and the rest will be the rest. Right. I wouldn't see a problem. Right. Because I would expect France to do what's in the best interest of France, not what's in the best interest of Germany and the rest of the EU. They should be looking out for themselves.
That's the thing. They don't. That's right. My point. He's KPT is asking me what other country doesn't put their own country first. Look at every country in the EU and the Muslim and how they basically tore down their own borders and said everyone's going to come in here and overrun our basically change the entire demographic of our country.
Yep.
That's not putting your country first. That's basically saying, "Oh, I want everyone to see what a good person I am."
And that is the number one way. What you just highlighted, that is the number one way to not put your country first. If you don't have a border, you don't have a country. Like that's it. You take your borders away, you don't have a country. You're like, if you don't have property lines, then nobody can tell you where your property starts and where your property ends, right?
Right.
Like if you don't put a fence up, the line can get blurred real quick. You know what I'm saying? So like if you don't have a border, you don't actually have a sovereign piece of land, right, on the map that you can call a country. If it's just wide open, then it doesn't matter. Right. So
it's the same thing like if you buy an island. Right. That doesn't make you have a country because anyone can basically come in there and basically take it from you. It only becomes a country if you actually can defend it and do defend it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great point. I know you gotta get out of here soon. I don't want to keep you, because
I do have to bounce in like a minute. Right.
So let me just run through some of these chats real
Right.
quick. I expect no charges. Trump already said his retribution is leading the country to better days. All Trump is doing with the least information is clearing his name. I don't see. Are you saying clearing on the Trump Russian collusion hoax? You're saying you expect no charges. I'll be very disappointed in Bondi if there's no charges. I'm going to be really disappointed. And frankly, the charges should come within the next 6 months, not a year and a half from now. When did guest party with Nick at convention? I see what you're doing. Woke right and woke left is where the horseshoe comes back together. But many in that far left and far right are just grifters pushed to the outer extremes, thinking this makes the money. And I think that that's really the problem. Is the money has gone so hot that I think that it poisons people who might start off with a good intention. The people who you're talking about, who you named as far as people whose credibility has taken has taken a hit over the last 6 months or so. I feel as if there's a lot of clicks. They're used to chasing clicks their entire life, and there's a lot of clicks into getting kookier and kookier. And the more you can do that, the more out there you could seem. As you said an hour and a half ago, practically, that the algorithm is going to reward you if you engage in clickbait, and clickbait is getting kookier and kookier and kookier. So people basically, and they might come in as having a MAGA type of perspective, but at a certain point, I think that the hunger for clicks ends up basically changing them into a completely different animal, where it's like what's going to score highest in the algorithm, and that's where I'm going to go.
You're serving the algorithm instead of serving the truth.
Yes,
and that's the problem.
Amen.
I mean, I'll give you one example. In December of 2024, and I don't know where you stood on this, but I know where I stood on this, and I was very vocal about it. In December of 2024, for about 10 days, the internet was absolutely captivated with this idea of drones over New Jersey. You remember that? Remember the drones?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I live in Jersey. So
it became a thing, right? Where I'm not saying there weren't drones. Matter of fact, it was most likely something called the Pterodynamics XP4 Transwing, which was a drone that has been tested since June of 2023. There was a press release about this that explained essentially what people were seeing. Okay. But it became all across the country. Oh my goodness. Everybody's seeing drones. Some people were looking up and seeing the Big Dipper. Okay. And being like, what is that? The former governor of Maryland took a picture of the sky, a video of the sky of Orion's belt, and was like, what is this? And it was literally a constellation, right? So again, I'm not saying people didn't see things, but also not every drone in the sky is a bad thing. Like, these are legal toys. It was around Christmas time. There was literally commercials for UPS where like kids were opening up Christmas presents, and there were RC drones. Like, I have 3 of them. I love flying my drone. It's one of my favorite things to do. Everyone's like, there's a school bus sized drone over in New Jersey. Why does nobody have a picture? Right. And then it turned into, because as we mentioned, like the algorithm rewards sensationalism and clickbait. Like, the drones are shooting things. This was AI. Then it was that they're looking for a nuclear bomb that went missing in the United States. How on earth did we get to and there was a report that came out and said radioactive material went missing. If you read the report, it was a pin that was used to calibrate PET scanners, like PET scans, right? That was, if you sat in the room with it for 3 months, you might get a little queasy, right? So but the algorithm rewarded sensationalism. So there were people who were thinking that there was a nuke that went missing in the United States.
That's going to be drone trapped.
That there was an Iranian mothership launching drones off of the coast of Jersey. Like, it got that Orion's belt were drones. Okay. That airplanes flying in on approach was abnormal at airports. I was like, this is crazy. I put the truth out there, and people were like, no, that can't be it. I was like, Why? Occam's razor would suggest that this is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's something nefarious. You're just not paying attention. I'm like, oh, okay. Sure.
All right, my brother. Where can folks find you?
All right. So I'm on X, as you can see on screen, at Shawn, SHAWN _Farash. I have a show Monday through Friday. It's 10 a.m. Eastern to 11 a.m. Eastern. We're on Rumble, rumble.com/LFATV. That's the shirt I got on. Okay.
LFA.
So LFA TV.
What does that stand for?
Live from America. It's
Nice.
founded by Jeremy Harrell. He's amazing. Great guy. It's a Christian conservative network.
Cool.
I am on, again, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern on Rumble. I also stream on my personal YouTube channel. So you can search my name. You'll see it. And I stream on X as well. So you could find it there. And because I know everybody loves it, right? We do a tremendous job. My website is Farash, Farash media.com. Some people like to do this for gifts. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm saying I offer it because some people ask about Cameo. I do some custom audio and video messages on my website, for whatever your occasion is. Very
George
easy.
Santos.
Yeah. Just like George Santos, except
you do
I'm
the
not
Trump
committing
voice.
fraud.
I happen to like George. The first time I saw him, I was like, the first time I saw him, I couldn't stop making fun of him. But I actually got to talk to the guy on Spaces and stuff like that, and he tells it like it is. Like,
I'll tell you what. I know some stuff about his case.
Yeah.
Firsthand knowledge that a lot of people don't know. I'm not going to say it. The guy's in jail and his sentence was excessive. I'll say that. But he was definitely guilty of what they said he was guilty of.
100%. He was guilty.
And he admitted it. Okay.
Yeah,
he admitted
he was
made
guilty.
mistakes. I don't think he should be in jail for 7 years. Okay.
Right.
It's too much. However, yes, on my website, farashmedia.com.
Can you give me the links so I
these.
can copy and paste them into my
Sure. Yeah,
description?
I'll send them to you over on X. It's farashmedia.com. I do sell these, the custom messages there. Very easy. Punch in your, person birthday, whatever you want, and I'll record it. It's a lot of fun. So it's if you want. If not, that's fine. No hard feelings.
Have you ever met? Have you ever met Donald? Does Donald know how well you do his voice?
I did meet him almost 2 years ago to the day, and I did the impersonation to him, and he thought it was hilarious. So,
really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Is there video of that? Can I see that somewhere? I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it's on my YouTube, and I believe it's also on the website. I just sent it to you, LFA TV's Rumble link, and my website in XDM. So, all
right. So I'm probably going to add that after the show. I thank you so much for joining me. I hope I can get you back sometime in the future. This was really insightful talk, and I had a great time.
Yeah, I had a great time too. Thank you, and thank you to your audience. You got an awesome audience, very engaged. Love you guys and gals, and hope to see you guys soon.
Yep. Take care, my brother. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
So that is Shawn Farash, not Farash, not Farash. It's Shawn Farash, and that, as I told you, he's very smart, has great impressions, and I urge you guys check it out. I will embrace the link. I'm going to include the links after I conclude the show here, so that you guys who want to follow him, he's at a show every morning from 10 to 11. On Rumble and on X, and I highly recommend you check him out because the dude actually is clearly very much not a one-trick pony. He obviously is well thought out, and he's giving to you what he genuinely believes. He comes across to me as being like very legit, so both smart and legit. And that's unfortunately too rare a combination these days. Now, I want to share with you, I took off yesterday, and I apologize to you all for that. I actually have a lot that I feel like I need to catch up on. So what I'm going to be doing is this. I set up a local show for after the show here. The link is in the description. It's pinned in the chat. You can find it pretty much everywhere. I'm going to start that now, and at midnight, I'm going to transition over into... I need to set the stream up. I didn't set the link stream up. That was a mistake on my part. forgot to take care of that. So basically what I'm going to do is I have a whole bunch of things that I want to cover. I really want to go into it, do a deep dive into the releases from Hillary, the cache, which is, the cache of the hidden skiff that was located by Cash. I have all sorts of questions. I have so many questions. I'll tell you one person that I really want to investigate right now, and that's John Durham. I don't understand how he had all of this information at his fingertips, and the dude didn't prosecute nearly enough people. How is it that he has an annex that's classified, an annex to his report? So they're annexing something onto his report. It's classified. No one can see it. And it's got all of this very, very damning information, which we're going to look at together, this damning information. And you basically say, oh, yeah, I'm just going to go after like some lawyer and not go after these people, when you see clearly how intimately Hillary and her staff and her whole campaign team were in perpetuating the commencement, the launch of Operation Crossfire Hurricane. And everything that happened started with Hillary before the FBI even began an investigation. It seems as if that she and George Soros, working together with one of his organizations, that they're basically working toward starting this entire thing and getting the FBI and the CIA potentially on board to try and get them to facilitate this narrative that Trump, this completely made up, bogus, never happened. It's full of crap when you're saying it, narrative that Trump had some sort of connection to Putin and the Russians. And you basically say, oh, I'm just going to leave this in a classified annex and not go after him. What the F are you doing? Why were you hired? Why are you doing this job? You put out a 300-page report, which pretty much was practically an exoneration without being a technical exoneration, but pretty much made it as if there's no one for us to go after. I'm telling you that when I saw this annex, the first person I was angry at wasn't Hillary. You don't get mad at a snake for being a snake. It's a snake. That's what it does. You don't get mad at a snake for that. No. You get mad at the person who's supposed to be the snake hunter, who basically like, I don't see no snakes here. I don't see no snakes here. I am pissed off at John Durham. Dude, and I haven't seen people talking about this. I haven't seen anyone talking about this. To me, that's the first thing I thought is like, how it's not like he missed it. That's the thing. If the guy just didn't see it, he did his investigation and he did it poorly. So he just never learned information that you would be like, dude, I don't know how you missed that. How did you miss that? Like, how did that happen? What happened? Like that? I mean, there's so much evidence here that's tying Hillary into this whole thing. How did you miss that? If he just missed it, I'd just be like, okay, the dude's incompetent. He's an idiot. But you're telling me that you're doing a whole investigation, you're coming out with a report, and then you have a secret part of the report that you're going to classify called an annex. And in that annex, now you're going to basically put all the different crimes that Hillary and her campaign is engaged in, not tell anyone about it, and then just charge like 3 losers who no one ever heard of before and be like, well, there's your big kingpins right there. What are you kidding me? Why the hell do you need a special prosecutor? What do you need someone like that? What do we need him for? Well, the whole reason you're getting him in there is because people that the DOJ should not be going after because there's too much of a tie-in to Trump. That's why you get a special prosecutor. That's why you get a special investigation. It's supposed to be an outside source, someone outside the DOJ who's supposed to be coming in here, independent, who's supposed to be doing, a fair assessment. Oh, this was just asinine. And I don't know why people should be screaming for John Durham's head. The dude lied to us. He lied to us, and he made it seem as if this entire thing was a big, fat, freaking nothing burger. That's what he did. And no one is saying that he's the person. I'm trying to figure out there's criminal charges you can bring against this guy for doing such a crap job. What the hell is that? I doubt there are. I'm not going to kid you. I'm not going to lead you down some path of like, and this is where we're going. Now let's go after John Durham. I think that there should be something, because this was This was not just incompetence. He's part of a cover-up. He's part of a cover-up. If anything, he's like almost an after-the-fact kind of conspirator. What the hell's happening here? What the hell is that? It's insanity. There. So I should start sharing with you what I'm talking about, because some of you probably are still in the dark. So let me do that. Let me do that.
Welcome to Alligator.
Yeah. I'm afraid I'm going to, oh God, he's giving me a whole bunch of links this way. There's a link to the channel. All right, there he is. I'll tell you right now, I would think about giving Shawn Farash type of greeting for a birthday gift. That would be pretty funny. I think that would be appreciated. All right, give me a second. Give me that, and then we're gonna. I'll give you his Rumble channel. And we'll give you X. That didn't work. All right. I want to make sure I get this in Rumble, because I feel like you Rumble people are most likely to actually, follow the dude. So I really should put his Rumble link on, especially on X, because I do like Shawn. All right. That's all in there now. Let's go take a look at. Let's take a look at what's going on here with this release. This is the best way to break it down. This is the best way that I found. I know it's going to look like I didn't click these links yet, but trust me, I went through them one by one for like 45 minutes before a show, and I was just like, you know what? This is all just like one neat little bow right here. All right. Clinton campaign role in Russia hoax debated after Durham report declassification. A recently declassified annex to the Durham report alleges that Hillary Clinton and elements of her campaign may just maybe have been involved in a scheme to link Donald Trump with Russia during the 2016 election before the FBI even thought of it. This has sparked considerable debate and calls for further investigation into the actions of Clinton and the intelligence community's involvement. The document suggests a complex scenario of political maneuvering, though there are discussions regarding the veracity and full implications of these allegations. Well, what are we talking about here? It starts with FBI Director Kash Patel. We uncovered this annex, along with thousands of other documents buried in a back room at the FBI. Ooh, a little house cleaning is good once in a while, isn't it? A little house cleaning. Ooh, some house cleaning. It revealed a highly classified piece of the Durham report, evidence that the Clinton campaign plotted to frame President Trump and fabricate the Russia collusion hoax. We worked with Chairman Grassley and declassified the documents immediately. And now the American people can see the truth for themselves. The Russia hoax was a disgrace that President Trump and our country should never have been put through. This should be a step toward justice. There'll be more to come. Your FBI We'll keep being relentless to get the truth out. We're thankful for federal partners like the Justice Department and CIA and more. And thank you, Chuck Grassley, for your tireless investigative work. This is the smoking gun here, as shared by John Solomon of J. Solomon Reports. Evidence inside the Durham annex. If it's authenticated by further investigation, it means liberal mega donor George Soros' team knew the whole Clinton plan for Russiagate hoax 4 days before the FBI opened up a probe. They hadn't even started doing an investigation, meaning this is not on their radar. They put it on the FBI's radar. The FBI and CIA, we're going to see, are basically following what the Clinton campaign wanted them to follow. And so did Obama, Brennan, and Comey. This is what the note says from Leonardo Bernardo, sent July 27, 2016. Leonard Bernardo, who I think is from, just want to be 100% sure on this, so I'm not talking out of my butt, because that would be wrong. Leonard Bernard, and he was part. Leonard Bernardo. He's the senior vice president of Open Society Foundations, which is a Soros foundation. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's where you have the Soros tie. Open Society Foundations is a George Soros organization. Leonard Bernardo. I just have this. Why did I do that? Yeah. So Leonard Bernardo basically works for him. Okay. Yeah. So Leonard Bernardo basically works for him. Well, that's an echo I don't need. All right. He sent on July 27, 2016. The reason that date is important is because Operation Crossfire Hurricane, which is the whole investigation into Trump's alleged connection to Russia, didn't start until July 31st, 2016. So this is 4 days beforehand. He says, hi, HRC, as in Hillary Rodham Clinton, approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russia hackers hampering U.S. elections. So no one's thought of this, but hey, she likes this idea. This should distract people from her own missing email. We don't like people talking about my missing emails. Let's talk about how Trump is working with Russian hackers to try and steal the election, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. The point is making the Russia play. The point is making the Russia play a U.S. domestic issue. Say something like a critical infrastructure threat for the election to feel menace. Meaning this is how we're going to build this story out. Since both POTUS, which is the time Obama, and Vice POTUS Biden have acknowledged that fact, and the fact that the intelligence community would speed up searching for evidence that is regrettably still unavailable. So let's start this whole story off, and we're going to need to do some more due diligence to look into this Trump and the Russian hackers working together. However, there seems to be signs GRU penetration, Cyrillic 2.0 VPN, Elite VPN, Felix Edmundovich. They appear hardly skilled, incompetent, bumbling idiots, and somebody call them. In absence of direct evidence, CrowdStrike and Threat Connect will supply the media, and GRU will hopefully carry on to give more facts. Wow. So this is now basically saying that Soros and Hillary Rodham Clinton. Now, this would be hearsay as against Hillary Clinton. This would be useful. This could, in theory, if corroborated as being, legitimate, this could be considered an exhibit, if corroborated, as establishing that Leonard Bernardo and presumably George Soros were working on this entire defraud America approach 4 days before the intelligence community was looking into a Trump-Russia connection. This is really, really shocking evidence to find. It is shocking evidence to find. You don't normally get this is a smoking gun. You don't normally get a smoking gun like this. It's shocking evidence. There's a lot more though. This is just we're starting. We're starting. As Mike Benz points out, holy effing crap. This in a goddamn classified index that has been classified for 9 goddamn years. This is where they cooked up the critical infrastructure hoax that created the legal predicate cover for the entire censorship industrial complex. They say there's something like a critical infrastructure threat. And that's why Shawn Farash was talking about the notion that they're talking about there's hacking and there's a Russian laptop and it's Russian disinformation. This is all as far as the critical infrastructure threat. I'm starting to wonder whether the entire hack of the DNC wasn't some sort of like Harry Carey type of move in order to try and facilitate this story, because they never were able to establish that it actually was done from outside. I don't think anyone has ever established that it was not self-sabotage. And I think it's very possible that it was self-sabotage. And this is me speculating. I'm not telling you facts. I'm just speculating right now that would it shock anyone if they engaged in that type of self-sabotage in order to help propel the notion that, oh my God, Trump and the Russians are trying to hack into us, and that would help perpetuate this story. Because the fact that the outside investigators looked at their servers and can find zero evidence of a breach, to me, is very suspicious. Now, I don't know enough about computers to tell you whether they usually would find evidence of a breach or not. They seem surprised by the findings. So I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. I'm just saying, to me, if you ask me first gut instinct, yeah, I think it was self-sabotage. Totally speculation on my part. Some of you may know better. Some of you may say, Joe, that doesn't make sense. If it was self-sabotage, we would be able to tell or whatever. And you can correct me on that. But I'm curious whether you guys think that it's that entire hack of the DNC was not a hack, but a self-sabotage leak. Just asking the question. Need to throw that out there. Did I miss a couple of chats? I might have missed one or two. No, I didn't. Did I see that Jeff Clark was being disbarred in D.C.? I saw that there's a recommendation for that, yes. Took up yesterday. Did you get your video edit done? You want to know how far I got into my video edit? I spent 4 hours on it today, and I got 1 minute extra of video. It's killer what I have. I'm really proud of what I have so far. Really proud of it, but so bad. Why would they ever put any of this in writing? They're trying to communicate. This is like when you have a conspiracy, you need to communicate with each other. It's a good question you're asking, Audra. I'm just saying, to me, the most logical explanation is that it's like, let's get the wheels in motion. That's what this email looks like to me. That they're saying, hey, we're all on the same page. I spoke to Hillary. We're on the same page. Let's go forward with this plan. So, you know, that's what I would assume. Here is Kash Patel saying, good summary of what we, the FBI, found declassified for the first time ever. More to come. Newly declassified documents from the Durham report appendix made public by Senator Chuck Grassley indicate the intel community was fully aware of Hillary Clinton's campaign plan to falsely tie President Donald Trump to Russia. This is a different document we're talking about here. This one I actually printed up. Give me 1 second, because I promised I was going to do this. Un momento. Mhm. Where are you at? Okay. Definitely want this bigger. I want to see it. This is not what I wanted. All right. The classified appendix forms a part of the report. This I did not have. I had a different page that I got confused with. Let's open this up. Make it a little bigger for you. Make it a little bigger for you. That's much better. That is much, much better. Report on matters related to intelligence activities and investigations arising out of the 2016 presidential campaign. Use or disclosure of any portions of this report marked FISA, subject to the requirements of the FISA Act, and may be subject to June 25th, 2020 order, the Foreign Intelligence Service Court, etc. Classified appendix. Introduction. This classified appendix forms a part of the report on matters related to intelligence activities and investigations arising out of the 2016 presidential campaign. So this is the start of the appendix. And provides further information about matters covered in 3 sections of the report. Section 4C1, investigative referral, possible Clinton campaign plan. As in, I know this is about Clinton, and that's why I am leaving this classified, because I don't want people to know about this. Section 4B1, the threat of foreign election influence by foreign government 2, and Section 4D1A2, the page FISA application renewals. Section 4C1, investigative referral, possible Clinton campaign plan. This section provides further factual background about, number 1, possible Clinton campaign described in the office's report. 2, the office's efforts to verify or refute the information about the plan. And 3, the manner in which the department officials received and acted on or did not act on the campaign plan information. The office's prosecution decisions related to the plan are described in Section 4C2 of the unclassified reports, meaning that's where we told you leave them alone. Beginning on or about 2014 and continuing through at least in or around 2016, individuals affiliated with Russian intelligence services hacked and gained unlawful, what? You have more? Do you have more for me? You got more for me? Maybe you got more here. Do you have more? So we stop short there. I need to go through this damn report. I need to go through this whole damn thing. I gotta go through this whole annex. We have to do that. Here's Carolyn Levitt.
Council has indeed taken place, and the president, well, I think a major organization of the national security apparatus, at least here at the White House within the National Security Council, has indeed taken place, and the president entrusts his current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, and our ODNI director, Tulsi Gabbard, to make the necessary changes to ensure classified intelligence, especially that could implement or hurt the national security of our country does not make its way into the hands of irresponsible actors who want to politicize that intelligence for their own end. Since you brought up the declassification report that was put out by Senator Grassley today, I'm glad you brought it up, because this should be a story every outlet in this room should be covering.
And none of them will. Not properly.
This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it. And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then candidate and former President Trump. To answer the heart of your question, the president wants to see justice served, and he trusts the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to implement that justice and hold these people accountable.
One more conspiracy, one more scandal for Hillary Clinton. This is a woman whose entire career consists of nothing memorable other than the scandals she's been engaged in. You can go all the way back to Whitewater. You don't even have to go into all the talks about people who she's offed. Although this one relates very closely to Seth Rich, who a lot of people speculate was done in by Hillary Clinton. But you can talk about Whitewater, you could talk about Benghazi, you could talk about the Haitians and the Clinton Foundation, you could talk about her speaking engagements. This is a woman whose seriously, name something memorable, name a memorable accomplishment of Hillary Clinton, and I promise you, you cannot name, there's nothing there. You cannot come up with it. She's zero accomplishments. Zero accomplishments. If you go Google it, don't even just see what do I remember. No. Google it. I mean, she's literally like naming post offices is like the biggest thing she's ever done. Her entire career is married, is basically the ice wife of well, I don't know if it's fair to call her ice wife, because I have a feeling that Bill Clinton is such a lecher that no woman would have satisfied that dude. But basically, the betrayed wife of former president, and failure after failure after failure after failure. A lifetime of basically showing that she was as ambitious as Cassius. This woman. Sorry, I shouldn't get Shakespearean on you. This woman was so ambitious and power hungry and so full of crap and lies that it's amazing that she manages to remember one story that she says 10 minutes after she says it, because she's told 7 more lies since then. Literally, like the most dishonest person whose entire reputation is she's just the wife of a president who became a senator and did nothing in her time there. I mean, 2.5 terms as a senator, 0 accomplishments. Oh, she only had 15 years, 16 years there. How can she get anything done? I mean, nothing. Stealing money from people, from charities. The Whitewater scandal that most people are too young to remember. One scandal after another. Benghazi and the lies she told there. One scandal after another. And perhaps this is arguably her biggest scandal. I mean, short of the dozens of people whose life seemed to end around the Clintons. Unbelievable. I got a lot more on this, but I need to move over now to locals. I promised locals I was going to start a show at midnight. It's already 12:10. I gave you guys 10 extra minutes. I'm going to be continuing this story really like mid-sentence. I'm just going to flip on over there. The link is in the description. You can find the description. You can find it in the chat. If you want to find the continuation as I'm covering this, in that case, I'm going to urge you to pop on over to locals. I'm starting that stream up. In fact, you know what? I'm going to start up now. You can't stop me. I'm going to start up now. We're going live. I'm going to wrap up things. I'm going to wrap up things over here, and we're just going to go continue live over there, so you don't have to miss a single breathtaking minute. All right, I'm officially live there. It sometimes takes a second for it to pop on over, to pop into life on the local side of things, but within like a minute or so, within the next 30 seconds or so, you should see me popping up there. And yeah, I'm live there now. Anyway, I urge you to join me over there. If, like I said, I've said this about locals many times before. I'm going to start off there. When you can come there and you can join for free. Everyone should be following me at goodlogic.locals.com, because that's where I post announcements about when I'm doing, if I'm taking off from doing a show, if the show is starting late, what the show topic is, appearances that I'm making elsewhere. And I also try and produce some individualized content over there that is exclusive for locals. It's designed to help facilitate and ensure that, God forbid, if YouTube gets mad at me, I actually still have some sort of livelihood from this thing that I've been doing for many years. So that's why I have it there. And if you cannot afford it, I don't want anyone to be priced out. I give away a free code to anyone. It's $5 a month or $50 for the year. And it's supposed to come from your entertainment budget. If you do not have an entertainment budget because you're still struggling from the wake of a Biden economy, I totally understand. I am prefer to give you a free code, and I will give that to you until life is treating you financially in a healthier way. Okay? I am perfectly happy. I've given free code to countless people. All you need to do is just ask. Just say, hey, Joe, can I get a code? I'm not going to ask about your financial situation, whatever. The objective is, it's like a museum cover fee. So I'll start off there for free, just, while people are getting acclimated coming in there. And then at a certain point, I'm likely to switch over into being for paid sponsors. Also, I urge you all, come on over there. The water's fine, and I will see you all over there very shortly. Anyway, that's what I got here. Let me just get some chats out of the way, right? But first thing is, working in government, you learn is you don't put anything like this in an actual written document. Well, I think they expect to burn the documents afterwards. That's what I think. They're expecting everything get burnt. You're right. She let her husband get a BJ, and that's an accomplishment. She did run a tight office covering up her husband's affairs. Yeah. I guess that was her skill. That was her mad skill, covering up her husband's affairs. She didn't even do such a great job on that. Look at how effective she was at that. Even that was a fail. Even that was a fail. All right. I will tell you that I'm not going to be on YouTube on Saturday night or Sunday. So, but I am going to be on Locals. In fact, I'm already there now. You can pop on over there, hit the link in the description, hit the link in the chat. It's all over the place. You can't miss it, whether you're on Rumble or on you're on YouTube. So to YouTube and Rumble, I say, God bless you. Have a phenomenal weekend. Don't eat some bugs. The rest of this Hillary thing and a lot more stories I need to cover with you. All going to be, I'm going for well over an hour on Locals. I urge you. Let's go. Why are you still here? Right. What are you, a lab meat eater? Don't eat some bugs. Godspeed.